Welcome to Off the Rails with Blummel, myself, and Blitz. Be here for the next, I don't know. I'm very tired, so I'm probably not going to last that long because we got to be back here tonight for Bubba 199.
Now, are you going to try to take a nap?
I'm going to try. I like even just to lie down, even if I don't fully fall asleep, helps me.
I agree.
So sometimes it helps more than a nap because sometimes it's kind of that gamble where it's like, am I going to feel better on the other side of this or worse? I don't know. So we'll find out. I definitely need to lie down, do some chores, go to the gym, and then return here for food, fun, festivities, music, so everyone can tell me how much my music sucks. Feel like I've been in the doghouse lately, but I like the fact when Babyface calls in and calls me out on stuff, mostly because, first off, I was a little bit sleepy, so that really did wake me up when people are calling you out. To be honest, that was like the best thing that could have happened because I'm like, man, I'm really dragging ass. And then, when someone calls in calling you, a fool and you don't know what the fuck you're talking about or whatever, you pep up a little bit. You get the adrenaline going. So yeah, the adrenals were pumping out adrenaline. I'm listening. I'm focused in. I'm dialed in. So that was really helpful. So I'd like to thank you, Babyface, for kind of, jolting me awake without any, external caffeine or anything like that. So, I know Roe v. Wade is in the news a lot and people are upset and I just don't care. Like, I can't even get myself to care. It feels like sports. Roe v. Wade feels like sports to me, where it's like I could never really care, still don't really care. As long as I can continue just doing my, and people are like, well, if you need an abortion, that's gonna be okay. All right, well, it sucks, but I just don't care. I can't get myself to care. I don't know what's wrong with me, but that's okay. we can move on from that. Does that sound weird to you? Oh, okay. No, my headphones were getting fucked up.
Like going zzz.
No, it was like it went completely dead for a second.
Oh, that's always good.
What I found interesting yesterday, I kind of like this news because I get to put on my white lab coat and start psychologically analyzing people from a distance. But are you familiar with who Elon Musk is?
Hold on.
Yes.
I knew where you were going.
Yes, of course you knew where I was going with this.
Even though we haven't talked about this one iota. Nope.
We didn't discuss any sort of prep. The only prep I was given for the show is what not to talk about. So I'm honoring that, even though I don't want to, but I am. So back to Errol. I keep wanting to say Errol Barnett. He's the attractive black man on CBS News. It's not him. Elon Musk is the father of the most the wealthiest man on the planet, Elon Musk. And when I saw this story, I was like, wait, what? And so there's very few articles I read from, beginning to end. Most of the time I skim, I read the first couple paragraphs, I go, I got it. Sometimes it's like, all right, I read the headline. There's really not much else to it but the headline. But with this, I was like, I need the background to what's going on here, what's going down. If you haven't heard, Errol Musk, father of Elon Musk, apparently was married to a woman and then divorced and then married to a second woman. And then I guess they split up. And then he had sex with his stepdaughter, who he impregnated with two children. I didn't even know about the first one, but apparently now there are two children. He is 76. His former stepdaughter, what's her name? Jana, something like Jan, maybe. She is 35 right now. So they've been banging for a minute, probably since she was about 29 and he was 70, which is quite the age gap. And just for some reference, I think he came into Jan's, let me get her name right. Is it Jan?
Jana.
Jana. Yeah, Jana oh Jesus.
Yeah.
Jana Bez, we'll just call her.
Bezuidenhout.
I don't know what kind of fucking German, Dutch bullshit that is, but
South African.
No, I mean her last name.
Oh, okay. I thought she was South African as well.
She is South African, but that looks like a German or a Dutch last name. So he came into her life when she was just 4 years old. Because I'm thinking maybe, she was a teenager or an adult when he married her mother. Nope, she was 4. She was 4 years old, and he was married to her mother, whose name was not Heidi, but I'm kind of like half remembering all the names of this.
I just saw it in the story too.
He was married to Mae Musk, and then that was his first wife. His second wife was Heidi.
Yeah, Heide.
Yeah, I was right. And Jana was this woman's daughter that she had from a previous either engagement or marriage or something like that. Errol and Heidi had 2 biological children together, but he also helped raise Jana, who was just 4 years old when he became her stepfather. Errol and Heidi eventually divorced after an 18-year marriage, but the Musk family was subsequently stunned when Jana became pregnant with Errol's baby back in 2017. Led to a falling out, blah, blah, blah. So
a bitter falling out between Errol and Elon.
Yeah,
that's kind of important.
Yeah, that's important. He said that he doesn't like his dad and that his dad is a terrible human being. Does this make someone a bad person? I want to say no. I don't think that having sex with your former stepdaughter makes you a bad person. It makes you a fucking weirdo. It's weird because there's a lot of psychological sort of things in play. For example, like incest avoidance, right? They did studies with kids that were raised in Israeli communes known as kibbutzim. That's plural, kibbutz. That's singular. And they found that a lot of these kids that were raised from basically birth together didn't really get married, and they thought that was bizarre because like that seems to be your pool, same age, same culture. Why wouldn't these kids be getting married? Well, there's these certain psychological mechanisms in play that, someone that you're raised with, especially at a very young age, kind of imprints on you that this person is related to you, right? And that's why typically, not always, but typically humans have not mated with their immediate family members. And in many cultures around the world, that's often considered taboo. And the thinking is we have this kind of disgust when we think about fucking our brothers or sisters because that leads to offspring that aren't really the most viable because they're all, they're going to look like the Whitakers. You got a lot of recessive traits, kind of have to date a little bit outside of the family gene pool. Mm-hmm. So what's interesting about this is that, especially as a very young person, you would think that she would be disgusted at the thought of having sex with her father. Well, clearly she wasn't.
Here's my question, though, because the article that I read said that, like, the Errol met and married this chick, the mom.
Heidi?
The mom, yeah, Heidi. and that Heidi already had the 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever it was, and one of them was a daughter, and that that Errol kind of helped raise like. What does that mean? Does that mean that like he actually like the kid was always around, or like he met the kid when he married the mom, and then like again once when the kid was 12, and then again once when the kid was 18?
That makes a difference for sure. If it's intermittent,
because it's pretty common for very rich men, which Errol was, to not really have any interactions with someone like the other person's kid.
Yeah, I mean that could very well be the case, but I'm thinking because these are all assumptions. He probably lived with his wife, and typically women have either half partial custody or most of the custody when it comes to children.
Yeah, he could have very well like lived with the kid every single day.
Yeah, it could have been. I think that is an important distinction. If you see someone every day and it kind of imprints on you that this is my kid, even though in your head that this is not my biological child, you still have sort of a father, daughter, or child, parent affection for this youngster that would kind of continue through adolescence and adulthood, where you're like, this person is just off limits, even though biologically they're not off limits because they're not my actual progeny. But still, nevertheless, I look at you like a daughter or a sibling or whatever the case may be. I think it's more interesting. I think if anybody is, demented in here, I feel like it's mostly her.
Well, did you see what like they asked Errol if he like seen the kids, and he was like, yeah, they came to visit me once a few months ago, and they annoyed me, so I sent them all back home.
Yeah, he's 76, like, of course.
But I'm wondering if it's the same, like, again.
It could be.
That he treated her the same way, like, you're just an annoying kid, get out, like, tell the kid to get out of here.
And that could very well be.
Which doesn't make it right. But.
No, it's just odd. It's like, there's really no, like, I don't really have a moral objection to this. I'm just more like, well, that's curious. Like, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And especially more so less with him because, I mean, she's a lot younger. She's a female. Like, I get why he is attracted to her. Maybe he wasn't really around. Maybe seems like he was a pretty successful engineer. So maybe he was busy a lot. I don't think Elon Musk is the greatest father to 10 children. I don't think he can be. When you're rolling around with 10 kids by 3 baby mamas and you get 10 different projects under your belt, like, I don't think Elon Musk is a happy man.
They asked him if you've taken a DNA test to find out if the kid's actually yours. And he said, I haven't checked her DNA, but she looks like my other daughters, so it's pretty obvious, And then they said, well, what was it? About other children he'd fathered, and he said, his quote was, I have about 6 people right now, women, who claim their children as mine. Obviously, they are just opportunists. He's like, but there could be some truth between that. There was a period in Johannesburg when I was going out with a bunch of different women every night.
Yeah, he was a fucking hoe. He was a fucking hoe bag. Whatever, fine. Maybe they were coming after him because the Musk family name is pretty popular and associated with having a lot of money.
Yeah, as it always has. Like Elon was a rich kid.
Yeah, I think he came from a pretty wealthy family. His dad was an engineer. His mom was like, I think she was a model. Like, it's not like he came from the hood or some, impoverished family. Certainly didn't.
Yeah, but Elon tweeted that he was ask him why he had so many kids. He said, I'm doing my best to help the underpopulation crisis.
Yeah, I mean, that's a rib. And it was also kind of scandalous because I think a few weeks ago it came out that he fathered like twins from an executive, I don't know, some executive he worked with at Neuralink, one of his many companies. And those 2 kids were born a few weeks before his second child with Grimes.
Yeah.
And I guess this was back in like 2019 or 20, but it just came out a couple weeks ago.
What was the kids' names? Grimes' kids? What was?
It was one. The first one was a formula. And then the second one was I don't fucking know or remember.
X dot the AE symbol and then A-XII.
I mean, these kids are hopeless. I really feel bad for Elon Musk kids. I mean, you got 3 baby mamas. You got a dad there's no way you can be a good father. Like, there's just no way, given all the shit he's going through now with trying to manage, like, think about what he's trying to do right now. Trying to manage Tesla, friggin' SpaceX. I don't know if he's still involved with PayPal, Neuralink, Twitter fucking scandal.
The boring company.
Yes, all of that in addition to having 3 baby mamas and 10 kids.
And now getting sued by Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean,
Trump.
thank God he has Asperger's. Like maybe that somehow protects him from being as stressed and neurotic as the rest of us would be if we were going through even like a tenth of what he was going through. So good luck to him. I thought it was just an odd sort of a thing. This whole stepdaddy. I'm like, this is very Pornhub. Like when I was reading it, I'm like, this is the I fucked my stepdaughter. I fucked my stepfather sort of a thing. That seems to be pretty popular in the pornosphere. And, it's like, okay, let's peel this back a little bit. Like, why? And I think that it's alluring for a couple reasons. Number one, it's all legitimate in the sense that you're not actually fucking your daughter and you're not actually fucking your dad or mom or whatever.
Okay.
So you kind of like, okay, well, they're not related. So you get that pass. But it's just the right amount of taboo.
I wonder like what's more popular, the boy banging the stepmom or the stepdad banging the stepdaughter?
I would probably argue that. I mean, I'm going to assume that most of the people watching porn are male. Not all, certainly.
No, but
so what do men find more alluring? Like an older woman, or you fucking your? I would assume the dad daughter thing.
So here's,
but I don't know.
Probably agree. Here's my thought: is I'm willing to bet the younger men that are looking at porn might have like the MILF stepmom fantasy thing.
Yeah.
And the older men would have the stepdaughter younger girl thing.
Yeah. That could very well be the case there. But that is a very popular category of pornography that seems to be getting more and more popular.
My favorite is the stepmom stuck ones.
Stuck?
Yeah. There was a community that made a joke about it like a couple months ago, so I'm like, I need to look this up. There's a whole genre of like, there's like a MILF walking around the house with like, like a French maid outfit, and she's like, oh, the drain's clogged, so she sticks her hand down the drain and gets stuck, and the guy's like, here, mommy, I'll help you fix it, and then he like bangs her as she's stuck in the drain.
I haven't come across this before. I didn't know that there was like that sort of that's the pickle where, this poor woman who's in a French maid thong outfit needs help from her, 16-year-old stepson.
Yeah, she gets like stuck in like various, like she's like has like holding like a wrench onto something. She's like, I can't move. He's like, I'll help you out, and like he like bangs her from behind. She's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. No, I know. I was unaware of that, but this perfectly plays into it. I think if anybody's got more issues, it's her, the Jana woman, because. Let's think about it. Yeah, it's kind of weird that he, banged a stepdaughter, but, she's a lot younger. She was like in her 20s when they first started having sex. Of course, he's going to find her hot. Of course. I mean, the relationship is equal in the sense that it's both like a stepdaughter, stepfather. It's kind of fucking weird. Mm-hmm. So let's set that aside because we can kind of use that as a control because they had the same sort of relationship with each other. But then step aside, it's like, okay, well, of course he's interested in her. Because she's young and she's hot. Yeah. But, like, why is she fucking wanting to bang a 70-year-old, let alone her stepfather?
I mean, so it's weird. The odd part of it on his side, though, is that he knew her when she was 4.
And he fucked her mom and has, like, half-siblings with her. Like, he has children that are her half-sibling. So, I mean, that's also... I mean, I'm saying it adds to but if he, complexity of the situation.
If the daughter would have been 18 when they met, then this would be a lot less of a story.
Yes, of course. Course.
That's obviously the story because she was 4. So people are like, well, okay, well, was he grooming her?
Right. That could be the case. It seems like they only, again, I don't know. It seems like they only had a sexual relationship once she was, well above age. Right. But
and from all accounts like that I've seen, like the daughter's like, oh yeah, it happened, no big deal. Like it's my, that's his kid.
We're consenting adults. It's like, okay, but first off, yeah, it's weird you're banging your stepdad, but like, why do you want to bang a 76-year-old? Like, well, that is odd.
Have you seen his bank account and his son?
I understand that, but it's like you're already related to him. Like you don't need to fucking bang the guy.
But what? Like it was. I'm assuming after the mom and him got a divorce.
Yeah.
So at that point, technically, she's not related to him anymore. Like an ex-stepdaughter. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I understand.
Like,
but
she wasn't in the running for any money.
No, okay. Yeah, I mean, maybe it was to get back in the game, but it's like, I'm sure there's plenty of wealthy men that you could choose. You had to choose the 70-year-old ex-stepfather. I mean, that just seems a little bizarre. But, a lot of people are kind of sick and twisted in this way.
Hey,
that's
Anna,
yeah.
Maybe she was in love with him.
I mean, she could have been. She could have been in love with him. It seems to be a bit bizarre that, you love someone as a father and then all of a sudden you want to fuck them.
Yeah,
that seems to, like, when did that transition take place? And that's a good point that you brought up earlier, the fact that he probably wasn't around very much. So maybe that imprinting really didn't take place when, he's... Because think about it. He was clearly cheating on everybody he's ever been with because he was fucking around and fucking all the whores and all that while being married, while having 1,000 children. So, he was a very busy man. He probably didn't maybe offer her a bunch of attention. So just an interesting thing I thought I would bring up and discuss. As far as the Ivana Trump situation, when I found out that, because I saw the news last night, and initially they hadn't determined how she had died. They said they didn't know, and that she was going to be examined by a medical examiner. And so, of course, my ears perk up because I recalled the interview from that woman that, Bubba played for a little bit, Whitney Webb. She's like one of the few journalists out there that is like trying to do real work, and I really appreciate that about her because she doesn't have, and I don't think she does because I've watched a few interviews with her. She's not trying to say like, we need to get Trump out of office, we need to get Hillary. She's like, this is just what I fucking found. Do with it what you will, which is really not. It's really refreshing to have someone just say, I don't care. This is what's going down. And she's kind of like a red pill person like us, where she thinks like, everybody is corrupt. It's not the left or the right. She's like, people in power are trying to fuck us over, which is the case. So she started telling this tale about Ivana Trump and Ghislaine fucking boss hogging around NYC, picking up middle schoolers and saying, asking them if they wanted a opportunity to model. Okay. I believe it was in New York.
I thought it was down in Florida.
No.
Okay.
No, because they were picking up girls because Maria Farmer was a New York chick.
Okay.
And then they were also picking up kids in West Palm Beach. Not Ivana, but this particular story involved Ghislaine and Ivana in New York City.
So I heard about the Ivana thing, and I looked up like on Drudge, it wasn't on there, and a few other places online, and I couldn't find it. So I started searching around. I took a screenshot of it to show you. So I found it finally a reference to it on ABC News, but the Google article had on there started out with "Do not publish" from ABC News.
Oh my God, that's awesome! What is it?
So what happened was they wrote the article and then wrote "Do not publish" because they hadn't been done, like they weren't for sure yet. But somebody published it before editing out the "Do not publish" part of the ABC article.
Oh shit, that's funny as hell. I'm glad it got out.
So yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what was going on with that. I don't know anything. At the end of the day, my dad always likes to remind me, like, Anna, you don't know anything for sure. Like, of course, but of what I've come across, of the information that I've collected, like, this is what I think may have happened. Do I know for sure? No, I don't know anything for sure. No one does. But I think that some shady shit was going down. I'm so intrigued by these cases, like with Epstein, and I feel like, and this is going to sound bad, and I don't mean it to, but like when we start focusing on the victims, and as we should, like if someone is sexually assaulted, we should, but we start to focus in on like the crime that happened, which we should, but it's like that kind of is a deterrent from, okay, the motive, like, why was he doing it? And I think people have just said, oh, he was like some one-off sicko and all this stuff. And it's really taking away from the fact that, like, he was a for-hire guy that was doing this for, like, he had lots of clients, sort of a thing. And when we start focusing on the victims, as we should, it really kind of helps. I don't want to say the deep state, but it helps take the focus off of like, okay, well, who is he in cahoots with? Why aren't we talking about that? Why aren't we talking about the people that were associated with Epstein and what their motives were and why they were involved and why they were on the Lolita Express? That just seems to be kind of, and again, in the circles that I run, that's less so, obviously, because people are interested. But when you look on, on the news and stuff like that, you just hear the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, the victims, they saw their day in court, and that's the end of the story. Mm-hmm. Like, she was a standalone aggressor. She assaulted these women or helped assault these women, and she's in jail, and now justice has been served. It's like, not really.
Right.
But okay, sure, if that makes you feel better. If that helps you sleep at night.
Well, it's because there's no proof that, like, the people, just because they flew on the plane, went to the island,
of course.
did anything.
Of course.
So...
Yeah, I know that.
Because I'm sure there was a bunch of them that didn't do anything.
Yeah, and I think that there were a lot of people, like I remember I am a big fan of Steven Pinker, who I think he's at Harvard. He's a Canadian, I think, like a linguist, like by trade, but he's done a lot of like interesting work on psychology, on violence, he does mostly stuff on language. And so he was... I saw a picture with him and Epstein, and it's like, and at first that was jarring because I'm like, oh shit, this guy's like a hero to me, and he's in cahoots with Epstein. But like you said, not everybody was, and he did donate a lot of money to like Harvard Medical and stuff like that because that was kind of a cover for what he was really doing. It's hard to be mad at someone when they're giving you millions of dollars to do research.
Right.
So it is what it is.
So I had a question. So a guy bought Jeffrey Epstein's old Gulfstream, not the big Lolita Express, but the smaller jet, because there was a few jets that he had. Now, this guy is now suing the Epstein estate because he says his plane is tainted because Jeffrey Epstein used to own it and would shuttle people back and forth, and the previous owners didn't tell him that. Do you think do you think you'd care that much, like?
Well, I mean, do you have to disclose?
No.
What? Okay, then you have no leg to stand on.
Right. But is the plane really tainted?
Well, I feel like this is the same thing with like people who move into a house that's haunted, or haunted in quotes, and then they're like, "Well, they didn't tell me it was haunted.
Right.
I want my money back."
Right.
Like, well, is that part of the rules?
But they're not saying like, hey, the engine doesn't work, or like there's,
it's faulty,
cum all over the fucking seats. Like you looked at the plane, you said, hey, it's clean, I like it, it works. Like, you bought the plane.
Yeah.
Who cares like what the last guy did with it?
And it's like kind of icky, but it's
like, you didn't disclose that it was ran by a crime syndicate. Like, what?
Okay. Yeah, you got the plane, buddy. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
Shut the fuck up. So I don't know what to tell you there. I don't know what to tell you. Let's take a phone call. Hello, who's this?
Hey, what's up? It's Hot Carl. I just was curious if you guys
let me Google you real quick.
Yeah, don't Google me. I bet forgetting to throw that zinger in there. But dude, so like, you guys know what Lolita means?
No, I thought it was just a name.
Well, yeah, Lolita means like young fucking whore girls.
Dude, it is so fucked up that, I mean, it's just so obvious. I'm not going to, like, everyone knows, like, the conspiracy about Jeffrey Epstein and stuff.
But hold on.
Simply look at...
You realize that the plane wasn't called the Lolita Express. That was, like, the nickname people gave to it, like, especially afterwards.
Oh, okay, so he didn't actually...
Yeah, I don't think...
Name it.
No, I don't believe so.
Are we sure about that?
I'm not 100% sure.
Because I mean, if you literally like look up that name, I've looked it up. It literally is like a term used for like young, like it's basically like a pedophile term for like little girls or whatever, and it's
in quotes. Weird. So I think it was just like
the locals dubbed his 727 the Lolita Express because of the frequent underage women seen on it. So yeah, he didn't call it that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, okay, but yeah, just like if you bottom line it, I mean, when there's some like websites that you can basically get like some kind of like, not like it's not dark webish, but I mean, you've probably heard of it. It's stupid. It's 4chan or whatever, but like there was a time where they posted like a video of inside that his like mansion or whatever on that island.
Right.
There's like this room that has it's like a fountain. It's like a bathhouse type room. And they actually like had real footage like that was this guy like snuck a camera in and like he was holding it to its side or whatever, but there was like really like obviously underage, under 15-year-old like girls there and stuff. You don't see anything sexual or anything like that, but still, I mean, like, it's so obvious. And I think like one of the most recent guys that called it out was a UFC fighter, and there was a video, and he was like, you know, how in the hell is there not like a list showing, you know, who actually was there, you know? And unfortunately Trump, like he was, and like there's so many pictures of him with, you know, Ghislaine and stuff like that. So
yeah.
it just, we may never know, but
No, we'll never
know what so in the last point I was going to make real quick was these elite people that have so much money, they can do anything they want, right? They can go on any vacation, they can do anything, but at a certain point, life becomes mundane. And unfortunately, what these elitists like to do is when there's nothing left, like they go to like these dark, perverse things to give themselves like an adrenaline rush or to like
I've said that before.
And that's
where
and
other
that's
things
why they were.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they have like the last resort, like the last thing that they have is like the ultimate drug or whatever to them is these like underage kids and you know, there's a whole dark wormhole, but I just figured I'd put that out there. But hey, thanks for correcting me. I did not know that it was not actually called Lolita
it wasn't
Express.
called that. People weren't like booking a ticket on the Lolita Express. Like that wasn't the name of it.
Yeah, it's in quotes.
But yeah, Lolita is like a term used for like pedos.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well,
Anyway,
like
guys,
wasn't
that
like
was the
named
intention.
like that. Like it was like just like called like that, like from other like people.
Sorry, dude. I say that shit when I get nervous. But all right, man, take it easy.
All right, have a good one.
Yeah, have like a good weekend.
Oh, be nice to him.
All the chat was calling him out on it.
Yeah, and it's funny because people are like, how are these people not in trouble? And again, from the information that I've collected over the last couple of years, it seems like the FBI was very much aware of what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And again, these are me making deductions based on what I've learned. But it seems like, especially since Ghislaine was in the picture, whose family business was intelligence, which is interesting because some people, you know, your dad may own a retail store or, you know, maybe a restaurant or something like that. Well, the family business was intelligence.
Right.
Like her father, Robert Maxwell, was a media mogul, but he was also involved. I think he was a triple agent. I've said this before. He was like working with the Russians. He was definitely in the Mossad, and he was also in the... Is it the K6? Is that what the
like
British?
Was it MI6 or MI5?
Something
MI6?
like that. Whatever the British equivalent to the CIA is. He was involved with all three of them and then just ended up dead floating next to his yacht. Apparently at his funeral, there were a lot of high-level Mossad agents, a lot of people in the Israeli government. So he was definitely involved with something there. And I think Ghislaine kind of took over that family business. So that's why it's very curious that she was working with Epstein, and the fact that the FBI was given information. Maria Farmer, who was, you know, one of the leading victims and the most outspoken victim, said that she contacted the FBI and they didn't fucking do anything about it. If anything, I think she implied that they already knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it, which makes me think, again, making deductions, that they already knew and they were using him as well. Like he had our government as a client and was working and, you know, wheeling and dealing, you know, covert operations to try to put other people in precarious situations so that they would cooperate with our government and maybe exchange information about, you know, God knows what. So very interesting. And it's really hard because, you know, like Hot Carl said, it's stuff we'll never know. We only have pieces, parts. A lot of the things are in the shadows. I don't like, where are all these videotapes of like hours and hours of blackmail, like thousands of hours of tapes? Like where's all that? We apparently, people have seen the TV cameras. A lot of the witnesses said that they did see like a room just full of cameras, you know, not only on Little St. James, but also in his big, what is it, like a 3-4 story mansion in New York City. The place he bought from like Les Wexner for like $1, like it was some fucking weird sort of situation. But it's fascinating, but it's also really frustrating because we'll just never know all of the facts, and we can only try to make some, you know, judgment on the few things that we do actually know. 813-90 Bubba, if you'd like to join the conversation. Hello, who's this?
Hey, it's James from St. Pete.
What's up, James from St. Pete? What's going on?
I just wanted to go back to Elon's dad and young girls. Actually, I have a customer walking in. Let me call you back later.
All right, sounds good.
Bye.
Bye. 813-90 Bubba. I did want to kind of get into this because we kind of had a very brief discussion about this guy, and I had no idea who he was. And then all of a sudden, about 4 days ago, I started seeing him pop up everywhere. Andrew Tate.
Okay, yeah.
He seems to have hijacked some sort of algorithm where, like, he was a nobody, and all of a sudden, I am getting pop-ups where he's on, like, podcasts that I listen to, short clips of him on mostly podcasts that I listen to, and just like I've never heard of him before. Then suddenly he's on Twitch. You were watching Twitch, he pops up.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I hear Andrew Schultz is talking about him. Same story. He's like, I didn't know who this guy was, and now he's everywhere.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was.
And so it was really, really bizarre because I was listening to a podcast on my way to your house. What day was that? Maybe Friday, Saturday? And then all of a sudden I come inside to your house and you turn on Twitch and then you're like, this guy Andrew Tate's on. I'm like, what the fuck? Like I was just listening.
I was like, who the hell is Andrew Tate? I was like, there was like 300 and something thousand people watching him on Twitch.
And then all of a sudden I was like, dude, I was just listening to a podcast that he wasn't even in but was mentioned in, because I was listening to a Michaela Peterson thing, who's Jordan Peterson's daughter. She has a lot of good insights. And she was talking to somebody about, meeting up with this guy, and there was this rumor that they had sex or whatever, and she was saying that didn't happen, whatever. But I just heard his name. I'm like, I don't even know who that is. And then I come to your house, and you're like, do you know who this Andrew Tate guy? I'm like, what the fuck? This guy's everywhere.
I know.
So I don't know what's going on with him. So last night I did a little bit of investigative research into who he is. He has some really fucked up, weird mutt accent that you can't place. I heard he's like American and British, but he like lives in Romania and runs casinos out of Romania.
Yeah.
So I don't really know much about him, but I started listening to some of his content, and it's very, I guess like sexist is the word. It seems to be very man-centric. Right. But then I'm like, is this guy for real, or is he just trying to be a provocateur and get people upset? Because some of the stuff he says is so outlandish that it doesn't even like really upset. Like, I'm not upset by anything anyone says that is, that's not to me. Like, if he's saying stuff about women, I'm not like outraged. I'm like, whatever, he can think whatever he wants. But then I started seeing him pop up on Your Mom's House, and Barstool Sports had an interview with him. So I was just like, who is this guy? But he seems to be like the Milo Yiannopoulos of like manosphere type things, because obviously what happens in culture, generally speaking, is like usually when you take like a hard swing to the left, there's usually an equal and opposite swing back to the right. And so because everybody's getting all woke and transgender this, pronouns that, this guy comes back and is just like a hardcore traditionalist saying that essentially women are property of men. And he said something on Barstool. I don't know if you saw this.
No, I don't watch Barstool.
No, I think it was like on Instagram or Twitter or something. Okay. But basically he said he was making the claim that if a woman is with a man and the woman gets on OnlyFans and makes money, that she should give that man a part of her earnings. And they were like, why? And he was like, because she like belongs to him and her intimate parts, quote, belong to him. And then when Dave Portnoy was like, well, what about if it's like some dude doing porn and he's with a chick, should she get? And he's like, well, no, because, he's a man and he owns himself. So, and then Dave Portnoy was like, do you see why people think you're a sexist? But I think he's a fucking troll and he's doing a great job.
I think so too.
Do you know anything about him, about this man?
No, other than I saw him and I was like, why are so many people watching this?
Yeah.
So I started looking him up, and it looks like he's like doing a lot of trolly stuff.
Yes.
And like you said a minute ago, like
okay,
he's lives in Romania, but like I think he either said he was American, but his bio says he's British, or he says he's British and his bio says, I don't remember which one.
I think he was raised in the UK, but he was born in America.
Okay,
I think.
There was something about that was kind of odd.
Yeah, but he's fighting out of Romania. I don't really know what he's involved in. Does he have? And then he has some like school of hustle or something. What Hustler University?
Honestly didn't look that far into him.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by people that come out of nowhere, and this is kind of what Andrew Schultz was saying. Is like it's not like he's a guy who's in the media and he's famous because he has a podcast or he's famous because he's an athlete, which apparently he is. But this guy seemingly just came out of nowhere. And suddenly, like, is an instant celebrity, and I don't even know, like, who he is or why he's famous.
Yeah.
So it's very strange. But do you watch any of this, like, manosphere type stuff?
Very, very little of it.
Because I watch a lot of it.
Yeah, no.
Like, a lot of it.
Like Jordan Peterson type stuff?
I wouldn't even put him in that category. I'm talking about, like, have you heard the, like... what is it called? The New and Fresh podcast or something. No. There's some guy that I don't know if he's like Arabic or something, but he says some like really outrageous stuff. Do you know who like Rollo Tomasi is?
Nope.
He wrote a book, I think in 2013 called The Rational Male. And it's like a bunch of these guys that are trying to, I'm intrigued by it because they use a lot of evolutionary psychology themes. So they're like, well, men are designed to do this and women are designed to do that. Like, ergo, it's okay to do these things. Or, these are a lot of the people that are men that are telling guys, like, don't be the nice guy. Don't run after a woman. Don't show any sort of weakness because women aren't attracted to weakness. Like that whole sort of deal. I mean, they preach a lot of different things, but that's a big portion of it. I'm very interested because I always feel like I like going behind enemy lines, and this is kind of like an outgrowth of like the school of, Neil Strauss and the mystery method and like how to like trick women using their psychology against them to get in bed with them, sort of stuff, which I've always found to be fascinating. I've been reading this stuff since I was in college, but yeah, but a lot of the themes that they do talk about, like, a lot of times they're spot on.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're spot on. Something that I've talked about recently that I've noticed pop up a lot more is that, and again, I'm making generalizations, but I've just seen a lot of it, where it seems to be the case that, it seems like women are feeling a bit entitled because of their biology. And let's just forget about the trans thing for a moment. What's a woman? Like, let's just put that aside. Let's just talk straight.
We're not talking about that.
Women. Seems like a lot of women are feeling, I don't even want to say empowered, but I would say entitled because they're a woman and they feel like they're owed something. It seems to be kind of a similar situation with the like reparations. So my past female ancestors were, discriminated against, and therefore, like, I am owed some, their debt or something like that, which doesn't really make sense to me. Like, if you've never experienced anything personally, you can't just want money or jobs because historically speaking, it was harder in the past for women to get a job or get respect or whatever. So I'm seeing a lot of that, and it just seems that a lot of women want equality when it is convenient. A lot of women expect things of men that they don't expect of themselves, which is, I think, to be a problem. And I'm not talking about like physical strength or anything like that, but it's like, I've heard this common trope. I'm sure you've heard it as well on like social media, and just people say like, oh, don't do like wifely duties for girlfriend prices. Like, I've heard that trope been thrown around a lot, where it's like, don't go above and beyond for this guy if he's not willing to commit to you. Where it's like, you're not attracted to a guy unless he shows good husbandly qualities. So it just seems to be bizarre that, if we're all auditioning for the job of, wife or husband, it seems to be odd that there's this expectation for the man to be a good provider and show that he couldn't be a good husband and father. But for you, you're really going to hold back until you get that ring on your finger. So I think that is problematic. So I really think that this whole manosphere thing is really, the pendulum swinging back in the other direction.
I agree.
And it's strange because, like, I feel like I'm in this weird situation where I'm aware of biology.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem, like, with people who want to live traditional lives. I am not a traditionalist in any sense of the word.
Right.
And and my life reflects that. I mean, I'm 35, I'm childless, and I'm not married. I'm an atheist and I don't go to church.
You like go out of your way sometimes to not do it that way.
Yeah, but and I'm conscious of that. But then again, it's like I'm also aware of biology, and I understand that, men and women typically have certain proclivities or different needs, and that there's a difference there, not only biologically speaking, but emotionally and just kind of their role in society,
right?
Or what they might be drawn to. So I'm kind of aware of that as well. But so it's this weird thing. So basically, I'm not on anybody's side. I sometimes understand when a guy's talking about, wanting a traditional woman or having a traditional life and having zero problems with that. And then, but also getting upset when not upset, but kind of like annoyed when he's like, well, a woman should do this and a woman should do that. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, not everybody is the same, and not everybody, these guys that on the manosphere talk in wild generalizations, sure, where it's like they know the ticket that will make all women happy, and that's just being barefoot pregnant in the kitchen, which some people, yes, it's sure, yes, for some people, yes, that's the right path for them, but that's not what every woman or person wants. And they're like, but it's like baked into their DNA. Like, yeah, but that's also can be partially socialized out of you, I think, to some degree. If like you're someone like me, you had a college education, you like freedom, you like traveling, you like doing all these things, and you understand like, okay, maybe a child could bring me joy. But if I'm doing a cost-benefit analysis here, I think I would like my single life more.
Okay.
That's usually how I think about it. Because I'm like, if I had a kid, would it ruin my life? I mean, financially probably, but set that aside for a second, and let's just say on an emotional level, no, I think, obviously I would derive some joy of seeing, this thing I created grow and become a person. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I would enjoy it more than I enjoy the life that I have now, because I really like
being able to do what you want.
Right. I really, really like that. I've always liked that. I think somehow it's like part of my identity to just be a gypsy, mm-hmm, where I'm like, oh, I can just get up and leave. And if that were to change, then I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, we were talking like just like a week ago, like one of these next few weekends, we're talking about going somewhere and like, hey, maybe we'll go to Atlanta and just like fly and stay there for a night or two, just because it's cheap and it's quick and like, a vacation and nothing crazy. But like, if you had a kid, you can't just do that.
Yeah,
well, you can, but
and I'm not even thinking on that level. And I mean, I am, but it's like I can't even go to the gym when I want.
Right.
Like, if you're, say, we have a kid or something like that, and you're doing work here, I can't just like up and leave. Mm-hmm. Like, I have to make arrangements or bring the kid with me and, all that sort of stuff. It's really like a day-to-day sort of massive transformation that I don't think that I want, because I understand that I could derive joy from both lifestyles. But if I'm doing a cost benefit analysis, what's the most important thing to me or makes me the happiest? One of those things is like freedom.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, freedom. Mm-hmm. Like just to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And making as few, maybe, and people would call me selfish, but I don't care, like making as few compromises as I can. That's a goal. Like if I can, be happy, like obviously like being in a relationship, you have to make compromises.
Of course.
But But relationships don't work when you have to make too many compromises.
Yeah, when it's all compromises.
When it's all compromised, you can't do anything that you want. Everything is like a watered down version of like what you actually wanted to do. And I think that the best relationships are the ones where you can make relatively few concessions.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you're on the same page. We both like doing these things together. And not just hobbies, but like life plans, children, marriage, where you want to live, political stances, politics, people say aren't important, but they are in the sense that they're a reflection of values. So for like every day, I came home to Blitz and I'm like, oh, I love abortion. He's like, I just don't think it's right. And then we just argue about that. Like that would be a problem. It's fine if one person is apathetic or doesn't know anything. If anything, that might be the best situation.
To be honest, it is.
I know people like that.
And it's actually not bad.
How do we start? I'm jealous of people who are Renaissance or ignorant.
I have said this a million times on the air, on all shows. The guy on Howard's show that is now known as Gary the Conqueror. Mm-hmm. I would love to be him in my next life.
And he is a special person?
He is. He used to be called something else, Gary the something else.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But he lives on his own. He's got his own place in like Washington State or Seattle or somewhere. I forget where. He has a job working at, I believe, a fast food burger place.
Probably never happier.
Loves it.
Yeah.
He cleans tables and takes out the trash, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to him. And he, makes his, couple $100 a week, and he's rich, and like I'm like, man,
lives his life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is so interesting. Envious. And I'm not, trying to say that we're cursed with intelligence, but beyond intelligence, like I think it's even more of a curse if you're intelligent and you're curious and you are a nuanced person. Mm-hmm. That's really the kicker, is the nuance.
Yeah.
Because that is something that you don't find with people very often. And I was talking to, Will about this, about how nuance is really I don't want to say it's a thing of the past because I don't know if it ever really existed, but it's certainly not present in our society today. And if it is, it's usually under wraps because the loudest people are the ones that have a very low resolution a conception of what's going on. Like the people that are protesting like for and against the Roe v. Wade, like I feel like both sides have a very low resolution of like what's going on.
Sure. The people that like protest the loudest usually know the least.
That is almost a fact. Like it's very true because when you start asking them questions about their beliefs and why they believe them, they can easily be tied into a knot that a pretzel they can't get out of.
Because because I'm somewhat involved in it and know a lot about it. But like guns, like people that are anti-gun know almost nothing about guns.
This is what that Colion Noir guy was talking about. Yeah. And that's why he tries to educate people on the matter because he's like the people that hate guns the most don't know anything about guns. And he was on Bill Maher saying that, and Bill Maher admitted that. He goes, I don't know anything about guns, but I hate them. He goes, yeah, that's pretty typical.
And not that I've done it a lot, and I used to do it more often, but like my favorite thing to do is to take people who either don't like guns or are afraid of guns or have never shot whatever and like take them shooting because it's a lot of fun.
It is, but like I feel like I'm one of those few people where I don't like guns. Like
that's fine.
I don't like guns. I am very happy the Second Amendment exists. So let's start there. But like personally speaking, I like that you have guns and have guns on you. I don't like, I'm feeling like I need to stop being a little bitch and actually, get more comfortable with guns, but I don't want to be. But I really don't want to be. I really hate guns.
But going out and shooting with me, like at least like opened your eyes to like, okay, I see how this can be fun. Because before that, I let people go, there's no way you go to a range and have fun. Like, that's not fun.
No,
like,
it feels like you feel empowered for sure.
And we need to go a few more times. Like, then it becomes a lot less like, oh, my God, it's just like, hey, this is what you do.
Right. And it's one of those things where, and again, I've only gone shooting once. So, take that as it is.
Yeah.
But, like, I can see myself being comfortable under supervision.
Yeah.
But like I can't imagine being like, let me just get all right, let's go shoot. And I like take myself, like obviously you can get to a point where you're that comfortable. But in my mind, like that that existence doesn't that doesn't exist for me quite yet, because I'm really petrified of guns.
There are a ton of people who can legally carry a gun or own a gun that shouldn't, like, that I don't think should, and it's mainly just what I mean is people who kind of like you are like, I'm afraid, I don't want to, I'm not going to, I don't know, I'm unsure. Well, then don't own it. Like, you don't have. I'm not saying everyone should own it. Like, you should have to have a gun. Like, no, but.
Yeah, if you want to, it should be available for you to.
Yeah, but if you don't want to, by all means, don't. Like, don't carry. Like, if like, I also think it's a lot more dangerous as far as carrying goes. People who are like, well, I don't really like carrying it, but I do, and I don't know if I'd be able to use it. It's like, well, then don't carry it.
Yeah.
Because the most dangerous thing is like pulling a gun out and then not being able to use it or willing to use it or knowing how, like.
Right. But then in that case, obviously you should be educated on how to use it before you start, having it on you at all times, which is a place that I would like to be. And so I'm like, is this the next arena that I try to go into, where it's like, because I am not obsessed with, but I've probably the last 10 years will purposely put myself in situations that I feel uncomfortable in, because I feel like that's typically where I grow the most, which I think is good. Like, I didn't want to start hosting Stay Woke when I was at the Bone, but I'll be very honest, Seth was the one that was like, you should ask John Brennan for an extra hour and you should host if you say you want to host. And I go, okay. And I asked John Brennan for that extra hour, thinking it would be a year down the road before he approved it.
Time to plan.
Like 5 days later, he's like, all right, 12-1's yours. And I'm like, oh, God. So I was kind of forced into the situation and hated it for about the first 6 weeks. Literally had like diarrhea every night because I would get so fucking nervous. And then I was like, at one point, I'm going to just get used to this. And it took about 6 weeks for me to settle in and go, okay, now I can kind of relax a little and enjoy it more and try to actually like hone the craft instead of just being so petrified. Now the new thing for me is the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Sure.
Every night I get nervous when I have to roll or do a drill, or because I'm not so much scared I'm going to get hurt, but it's like my ego is going to be bruised. I'm going to get beat by someone who I quote should be better than. I'm going to get just annihilated and humiliated, like all those things. But I'm like, you have to keep going. Like, you can't be, if you're going to quit, you have to quit on a good day.
Yeah.
You have to quit when you're enjoying it. You can't quit because you're afraid.
Let's do this. Let's pick a day and maybe go like every other week or maybe every week.
Yeah, because I can't just go once a year and be like,
no, but like not like all the time, but like because it's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But like fairly often, because I haven't really gone shooting much at all lately, so I want to go too. But like we'll take 1 or 2 guns, we'll go to a range like after work and shoot. Yeah.
And I think I should get just even familiar with holding a gun and obviously shooting a gun and the proper safety protocols and all that sort of stuff. Because my dad had a gun. He tried to take me shooting one time. It really wasn't the way to go about doing that. Right off the bat, my parents had just gotten divorced. He's like, let's go shooting. It'll be cool. I'd never even held the gun before. And all of a sudden I'm in in an indoor shooting range with 15 other people. I don't know their mental states and like if they're going to just turn around and fucking murder me. So I was just.
Well, it could happen.
Of course it could happen. So I was just like, it was a horrible experience. We walked in. I'd never heard gunshots before in my life.
It's a lot louder than you think it is.
Yeah, and even with the muffs, I was like, I just started crying. So we were in there probably about 4 minutes. I'm bawling. My dad's like, all right, let's leave. And so it was so bad. The guy's like, here's your money back.
Right.
She's a mess. So that was my first experience before you came along and took me and was like, here's the gun. It's just not loaded. There it is. Just look at it. I need kind of that. Yeah. You know what it is? You need exposure therapy.
Of course.
You're afraid of snakes. You don't just they don't throw you in a fucking
and
cage
I didn't hand you
snakes.
my AR and say, here, shoot this. We started with like a little.
With a silencer and.
Yeah, silencer, 22 handgun, like a nothing gun, but still a real gun. Like, but a nothing, and then moved up from there. That's what we'll do with the indoor range too. I'll just bring a couple of little handguns and we'll just we'll go one day and.
Indoor ranges.
But the problem is there's only like 1 or 2 outdoor ranges around here.
I know.
And in the summertime they suck.
And here's the thing is like because we had that connection Like I'm spoiled because I'm like, well, why does anyone even have to be there? You know, because I don't like relying on other people's mental states. Like that makes me uneasy. You know, I wish we could just go to a farm and, you know, like shoot at rocks like we did. But, you know, unfortunately.
We kind of can, but those are far away too.
Yeah,
that's the other problem.
Right. But I want to live, you know. And I don't like going to a place where like everybody's fucking like, oh, here's my gun. And I can just fucking, hey, fuck you. Like, you know, that I understand it's unlikely, but it scares me. You understand?
Well, you can get in your car and the same thing can happen.
I understand. I'm not saying it's any like more logical.
Right.
You know, when you're crossing the street as a pedestrian, you're, you know, really putting a lot of faith in the people that are the red light that are stopping for you to cross. But again, when you're not used to something, it's a lot more frightening because you don't know a lot about it. You know, I have friends all over the world and they just think that everyone's just getting shot up and murdered here, and I'm thinking, you know, they're in Europe. I'm like, are you getting blown up by, you know, terrorists every day, you know? So it's just kind of, you know, reporting bias where you're like, no, I'm not afraid to walk down the street. I'm like, you know, and my dad has a lot of friends that are in Israel, and you know, a lot of them use public transport. And I'm like, how are they not freaked the fuck out every time? And it's like, well, they think the same about us, that everyone's getting shot up at a school or a bank or, you know, at a grocery store. So it is kind of just.
And look, one time of that happening is too many. But, you know, if you look at the numbers, it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, I know. And
again, one is too many. I'm not saying it's not. But
no,
like,
you're just talking stats.
Yeah.
They get it. They probably don't. You guys don't get shit. That's why we can't talk about some things, because you guys are. I'll just stop there. I've said too much. But going back to just ignorance is bliss, I really think that it is.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think like beyond, and I think some of it doesn't even have to do with intelligence. I think it's like a lack of curiosity. I found with people that are not very involved with politics, say. And I actually appreciate when people say, like, hey, I don't know anything about it, so I don't feel like I can weigh in on this. I'm like, fucking props to you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, because a lot of people just start talking shit and they don't know anything, or they just think they're like, oh, that sounds good, I'm going to jump on board. But I appreciate people who kind of take a step back. But what I've realized is a lot of people who, you know, don't want to get involved because it's like, it's so daunting, like the amount of information. And at least those people kind of understand that situations and issues are complex. A lot of people don't. They're just like, what? Abortion's illegal? That's terrible. Oh, they hate women. Oh, those protests. Like, I wish my brain like functioned on that level, but when you're nuanced and you're like, fuck, I kind of get what the right is saying, but I also kind of get what the left is saying.
So there's like literally people who think that like the Supreme Court sat in a room and were like, you know what? Let's make abortion illegal and overturn Roe v. Wade. Like, that's what they think actually happened, and that they came out and they said, you know what? Roe v. Wade overturned, abortion is now illegal.
Yeah.
And that's not even close to like
no. And then you start talking, you know, about the states thing, and sometimes they know, sometimes they don't.
Right.
And they're like, well, what about the person that can't fucking like? And then it immediately goes to like the most extreme cases, which, all right, fine, those are still things that happen. You know, like that 10-year-old that was fucking raped, and you're like, oh Jesus Christ, like, and that person's having trouble getting an abortion.
By the way, both sides are fucked up. Like,
yeah, and I mean, like, okay, and that is horrible that a 10-year-old was fucking raped. Don't get me wrong. But then the right would go, but maybe we should punish the rapist and not the unborn fetus. Like, that's their argument. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a point. The fetus didn't do anything. It's like, you know, it seems like you're taking it out on the wrong entity. But also, it's like, do we really want 10-year-olds having kids? Like, here's the thing about abortion that makes it so complicated. Everybody benefits from abortion except the fetus. So what do? Do you act on behalf of society and say, on behalf of the people who are already here and living as real adult or people who are considered people, if that benefits all of us, or should we maybe take into consideration this unborn person? And I'll award it personhood, because if left untouched, it would turn into a person. So we'll award it personhood.
Yes.
So for the most part, but you know, so everybody else, do you act then ethically, morally, legally on behalf of society, or do you do the hey, this is actually what the right thing is to do, which is maybe let the child be born. Now, I've heard some things, and again, I need to investigate a little bit further, something about Texas is suing the Biden administration because, like, even in situations where, like, the mother's life is at risk, they're not allowing abortions. That seems to be if I'm going to draw any line in the sand, even beyond like incest and rape, it would be if it's threatening the life of the person that's housing.
Yeah.
Like, then, I mean, I have no other argument, but like, come on. Like, how's the baby going to survive mostly? Like, if it's 2 months, like, ectopic pregnancy, the baby's going to die and the mom's going to die, like, let's save the mom. Like,
right.
That seems obvious.
I think the question is, though, law-wise, how are you going to write it out where it's like you're guaranteeing the mom to die? Not there's a 10% chance. I mean, like, at what percent do you do it to save them?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's some sort of like subjective discretion on behalf of the practitioner to say, hey, I'm signing off on this, and this is threatening the mom's life. Whether it's a 30% chance of survival or 100% or 95% chance of survival, right. I feel like if there's, but again, having a baby is kind of also threatening your life, like just point blank.
Of course.
Because, like, there's complications that can arise from pregnancy.
Be a murderer and kill you.
That, or also, like, there's, like, gestational diabetes, like, shit like that.
Of course.
But I would say that if it's, like, that'd be really hard to... listen, we have some people that can put together a document.
You got to think, that's just it. Like, say, Dr. A says, nope, this woman... she'll be completely fine. Like there's no issues here.
Right.
And Dr. B says, no, there's a 1% chance. So her health is at risk. She needs an abortion.
Yeah.
How do you
write? Need 3 doctors, best of 3, Right, I know it gets really messy.
It's hard to write a law that can take that into effect.
Right. I mean, and then it's like maybe you should also take into consideration, if the mother has gestational diabetes and the doctor's like, this is threatening your life, obviously the mother can step in and say, I'm gonna take the chance. Mm-hmm. I want to have this baby, or at least try to have this baby.
Right.
Versus like, the person who didn't want the baby and who's afraid now.
Sure.
But again, like, it's really hard because it's not just like a
it's not a cut and dry thing.
It's not a cut and dry math that you could just say this is 100% threatening your life, and to what degree.
Right.
And having a baby is risky. Like, shit can arise from a perfectly healthy person getting pregnant, and then all of a sudden, like I said, gestational diabetes comes to mind because that's a thing I hear sometimes. Or if you're just maybe like a little bit older and, the baby, essentially a baby is a parasite. I mean, it's not a symbiotic relationship. The baby isn't really giving the mom anything. It's just a parasite that's, sucking out resources. And then when it's born, it sucks out more resources and continues to shit. Yeah. So all I'm saying is shit's complicated, but I wish that I had I do and I don't, because I don't respect people like that, and I don't respect people that like really can't think beyond 1 or 2 steps, because then when you start to kind of ask them a few questions about things, and that's the best way to kind of get through to people, just ask them questions about their position that are hard to answer, and I feel like that's when they're kind of like disarmed, because you're not just yelling at them. Like, you're not going to change any minds and hearts by calling someone like cold-hearted or stupid, or like, that's not going to make me change my mind. But if you start asking them questions that they find hard to answer, that actually might make them think. Not that I'm trying to change minds and hearts. I kind of like just watching the circus, just sitting down, watching everybody fight. But when Babyface called in and was like, people are really upset about this, it's like, yeah, but a lot of people are celebrating this. So it's like,
that's the thing. I'm kind of like, whatever. Like, I'm okay with the states deciding it, and if you don't like the way your state decides, then you can go to a state that does. But yeah, a lot of people are like cheering this, and they love it, and they, like, there's a lot of those people out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of people celebrating, and I feel like they are trying to, depending on what media sources you watch, they're trying to show like the entire country is outraged by this. And a lot of people are. Don't get me wrong. A lot of people are very upset about this, but a lot of people aren't. A lot of people think that, whether or not that they're, pro-life or pro-choice, a lot of people might be libertarians and they think, all right, yeah, leave it up to the states. I'm pro-choice, but this the Constitution before everything else sort of a deal. And this is in line with what the Constitution says. And that gives states priority about how they want to run things. And they don't think that they should be taking direction from the federal government when it comes to issues like this.
There's a guy in the chat room. His name is Ty J. Armstrong.
Oh, yeah?
He says, I love my daughter to death, but in all actuality, kids fucking suck. Just saying.
Oh, perfect. See, I love when people are honest like that because it's hard to get a true read from people.
Right.
When they have the child, because children, hypothetically, you could be like, oh, I hate them, I kill them, they suck, they're annoying. But when you actually have someone call in and go, listen, I love my kid, but also, like, fuck that.
Right.
That helps me. That helps me a lot. And I'm running out of time. So, I mean, like, again, I think my best reproductive years are certainly behind me. And that is okay. And
by a long shot.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, you're not wrong. Like, the best time, biologically speaking, to have kids is probably like 15.
I was going to say biologically, it really is.
Yeah. Because you think about like these 15-year-olds that get pregnant and have kids and destroy their lives, but their bodies bounce back very quickly. Yep. They're a lot healthier, younger, viable. I mean, I see a difference even like, I mean, obviously having a baby and doing jujitsu are a little bit different, but just in terms of like the recovery time of like me versus someone who is 21. Like I was talking to this guy who is, he's a white belt like me. And he was, giving me the ins and outs of everything. And we're kind of like gal pals because he's like clearly a homosexual, which is great. And I love that. And I love how my gym just embraces him. Like no one's like, oh, I don't want to roll with the gay guy. Like everyone's cool with him.
Yeah,
like
it might rub off onto me.
Right. And especially because like he's rolling with mostly straight men. So you'd think they'd feel uncomfortable. But everyone is super cool about it. But he's like, yeah, I'm here like 6-7 days a week. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like my body will break. But I'm like, can I ask how old you are? He's like, I'm 22. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 35. Things are a little bit different. And I'm not trying to brag, but I'm doing really well for 35.
Yeah.
But I'm still 35.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep that shit in mind is what I'm saying. And just kind of preserve yourself as long as possible. Because that's...
And yeah, Bama Boy, 15, 16 is probably like prime age biologically. Socially and realistically and all that, it's not, of course.
Yeah.
We're talking strictly biologically.
Yeah, absolutely. 15 is probably, I mean, again, depending on when you start menstruating, but I would say probably, this isn't like an endorsement for people to go rape a bunch of 14-year-olds.
It's not right. I mean, you shouldn't do it because, like, there's many other reasons that outweigh the whole biological thing. We're talking about biologically.
Yeah, and it is, and again, this is going to get twisted, but it's like, it is strange how we drew the line of adulthood at 18 when clearly, being sexually viable, reproductively viable, it usually occurs much younger. So, it's kind of interesting because, back in the days in which we evolved, people weren't living past 30 because of not necessarily because you couldn't last that long, but if you got a tooth infection, you died, or you broke your arm, you died. Right. If you got some sort of virus, you died. There were no antibiotics, there was no medical care. So, you were often taken out by like a hangnail because it would get infected and then you were fucking dead.
Yeah, we didn't have Silverdine,
which I used this morning. Yeah, so I mean, anything could get infected, and most people were dying, either of maybe predators, disease, injury. So people were getting taken out.
Rex.
Right, if you believe in the Bible or whatever. So people were getting taken out very young. So you kind of had to start breeding very young, obviously.
And they did. Yeah.
So it is kind of odd that there's this mismatch biologically and socially speaking when we talk about adulthood, because by all accounts, biology wants you to start having babies as soon as you're able to.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's quite young.
Yeah, 5
in some cases. By the way, looked up like Guinness World. He's referring to, I was looking up the youngest mother.
We talked about the hot mic earlier.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Or you did.
Yes. I couldn't remember if it was during the hot mic, but for those that didn't hear, I looked up the youngest mother like in Guinness World Book history, and it was this Peruvian woman named Lena. Jesus, a child, little girl, Peruvian girl, and she was 5 years and 7 months old when she gave birth. She wasn't even 6 years old, Apparently,
Hold on, whoa. She was 5 years, 7 months when she gave birth.
Yeah. So she was like 4 when she was like raped, probably by a family member.
Yeah. Her dad.
Yeah, probably. And so, they're like, how? First of all, like, that's horrible, but how the fuck did she get pregnant at 4?
Yeah.
Well, there's crazy shit that happens. I think they call it precocious puberty. Mm-hmm. So maybe something's fucked up with the pituitary. You start releasing gonadotropin hormone, whatever. The things that induce puberty.
HCG.
Mm-hmm. And so she was like menstruating, I think some people were saying from the time that she was like 8 months or like 3 years old or something like that. I mean, something was fucked up, but it was like the perfect storm of horrible events, and she ended up getting pregnant. And her family like took her to a doctor when she was 7 months. They're like, we think she has a tumor. And they're like, she's pregnant. And then she had to get a cesarean section because her pelvis was too small to like give birth. Just a fucking nightmare. So yeah, that would be cool if like they could have aborted that, but what are you gonna do? So that's all I have for you today.
leave you on a high note.
Abortion.
We'll be back tonight at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true. Bubba 199. We're gonna have a full house. A lot of hotties, a lot of titties on display. I may dress up, I may not. We'll see how I'm feeling in a few hours. Because, I'm like, I never dress up for Bubba 199. Mm-hmm. I mean, I put on maybe a little bit of eyeliner, but that's all you get out of me. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, how I'm feeling.
I'm dressing up.
Blitz is dressing up.
Yep.
So we'll see how we go. But make sure you tune in. Twitch at The Bubba Army. 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., if not longer. Eastern time, of course.
And check like YouTube or Facebook at like around 7. It might go live for a few minutes.
Ooh, okay.
Like out back or out front cooking or something. Who knows?
All right. Some behind the scenes BTS sort of stuff.
You never know.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll see you tonight. If not, we will see you Monday morning for the big show. Have a great weekend. Be safe. And we will see you on the other side. Thank you, Blitz, for everything.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.